pretty typical of the Arctic landscape. You have sort of a stark Arctic tundra, and you have these little islands of lushness, like around a fox den. And those are, if you're an herbivore, that's a good place to go to. Those are some very happy plants growing there. Oh yeah, this guy found himself a well-fertilized place too. That's the honey bucket dumping site near Teller. You guys are going out on the Teller Road, I think, yeah. So as you go down towards the village, look to the left, there's the garbage dump, and that's where this guy was hanging out. Well, I don't know, he's not locked in. This fence was open to one area, but he liked it there, because if you look closely, you can see the whole landscape is brown. So again, it's this time of year. But there's still some very green stuff right here in the honey bucket slush, the stinkweed. It's not called stinkweed because it grows there. It's always called stinkweed or artemisia, or has many other names too. But anyway, that's the stuff he was eating. All right, what else do we have? Oh, yeah. They do get in trouble. They wander into the villages. Here's a nice little, beach grass that he likes to eat. But now he's in the middle of the village, and the dogs are barking at him, and he's charging them. So this guy got escorted out of town, tranquilized. Oh. He's not dead. He's just tranquilized. This is a fish and game biologist who came and knocked him out. And he was deposited on the tundra, and then got the reverse shot and woke up again. So he lucked out. People might have just shot him, but instead they called fish and game, which was very nice of them. Here's just a little beach scene. The herd traveling on a beach, and see the calves again side by side like they like to do. And one of them belongs to that cow probably. And interestingly, when the kids are getting more independent, they don't always pay attention where the adults go. But there always seems to be one old cow keeping an eye on them, making sure they keep up. So this one actually came back a ways and looked for the babies, said, "Where are you guys? Hustle up." So picking them up and making them come. Now comes fall time. This is out there towards Teller, so this is when you drive out on the Teller Road, you might see the scene like that. This is like frost in the morning, probably late September. These are the Kigloeg Mountains that you look back on when you drive from Teller back towards Nome. That's the view you get basically. Here's a little herd of muskox on the fall tundra during the rutting season. So the rutting season is fun because a lot of interesting things are happening. They're mating, obviously. They're going to make babies. But the way muskoxen mate is in sort of little harem groups. The dominant bulls, the big bulls, compete for access to females. And each little group of females usually has one bull with them. Only one, because he won't tolerate any other bulls to be near them. And if another bull shows up, they square off and they kind of duke it out, and sometimes they really fight, and I'll get to that in a moment. So this is a very small little group here, but here's the bull in the front. That's him, the big guy here. But they can have groups much larger than that if they're lucky, or in areas where there aren't many bulls, and the groups tend to be larger. Here's a nice, bull in his prime, in fall. This is as nice as they'll ever look. He's fat and shiny. He's got new kiviot growing in. His hair is all silky. They're often described as shaggy, but they're not really shaggy. A healthy muskox has very smooth and silky hair. Very beautiful hair. They just look a little shaggy, I guess, when they shed the kiviot, but not this time of year. And his horn boss, see the part above his forehead, is fully developed. So the males have a very thick horn development right over their foreheads. The females much less. Here's a younger bull. He's wet because it's raining, so he looks a little shaggy right now. And here is a typical breeding harem, a breeding group. So this guy here, I knew him quite well actually when I worked out there in Deering. At the time, they didn't have that many muskox, and he was basically the breeding bull in that herd for 3 consecutive years. The same bull. I recognized him because he had his horn on one side was cut off, so he had broken one horn tip, so he was pretty distinct. That's him here from the other side where he had the horn. But anyway, this was his group of girls here, so he had quite a big harem, and all of these are females. These are all females. The one he's working on here, this one is a yearling female. So if they're in good condition, they can actually get pregnant as yearlings and give birth as 2-year-olds. What he's doing there is his mouth is open, his nose is up. It's a behavior called flamen. And I think I might have a better picture of it? Well, maybe coming up. So some more of the courtship. So many animals have courtship. So animals don't just, mate with whoever. They're very picky about which mates they pick, just like people. And many animal species have something called courtship. And courtship is usually, in most species, it's done by the male towards the female, but it allows the female an opportunity to choose, to say, well, is that really the guy I want to mate with, or is maybe somebody better hanging around the bush? So musk oxen have a very elaborate courtship. And here's a bull and a cow, and he is almost twice as heavy as she is. I mean, he might weigh 800 pounds, and she might weigh 450 pounds. And normally, at any other time of the year, when he stands that close to her, it's usually a signal for her to move away. Like if this happens like in January, and a big animal like that comes up to you, it means, get out of my way, I want to eat what you eat or whatever. But during the rutting season, he has to convince her to tolerate his presence, to be okay with him being that close. So he starts very subtly just following her around, standing next to her. He just kind of stands there, and she stands there, and she walks forward, and he kind of comes with her. And he tests the waters to see if she'll let him near her. Here's one he's putting his horn on her rump, trying to convince her to get up. And so that's some part of courtship. Here's a little more of it. When he's been standing close to her, sometimes he nudges her with his foreleg, so he sidles up to her and he goes. And you can't see the leg, but he's actually giving her a gentle little kick. It's actually a typical courtship feature of a lot of goats and sheep, not just musk oxen, who do this foreleg kick. And it's very ritualized, so you can take 50 photos of it, and they all look very much alike. Here's 2 different scenarios, basically the same thing. And he tests, will she allow me to touch her? Because here's the thing, he might be twice her size, so he can get angry, he can chase her around, he can maybe even butt her in the ribs, but he can't mate her without her permission, because she has to stand still for him to do that. So he needs to convince her. That's the beauty of courtship. So here's this flamen behavior. This one just got up, this female, and she urinates. And in her urine are certain pheromones that he can pick up with a special organ on the roof of his mouth. And when he does this flamen thing, it looks like he's yodeling, but it's silent, there's no sound. He opens up that special organ, and it has receptors for those pheromones. So this will tell him whether she's in estrus right now. In other words, whether she's right now able to conceive, basically to become pregnant. Because if she isn't, then why waste his time? He'll move on to the next cow. But if she is, he'll continue with the courtship, and he won't leave her aside, because he wants to make sure no other bull sneaks in there and does the honors. And then at some point when he gets bold, he'll try to get up there. So this is kind of a failed attempt, this one. She moved. She said, not now. And it didn't work out. But, at some point, he gets lucky. And the mating, while she's in estrus, he'll mate with her several times. But each one up there is only a few seconds, like boom, 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 and then, down again. It's a little bit precarious in terms of balance. So, there it is. But interesting things happen, and this is the fun part of watching muskox. It's like a whole soap opera. I said that the dominant bull wants to mate with all the females in his group when they come into estrus. But it's not always that easy, as you might imagine. For example, there might be more than one cow in estrus at the same time. And then he can be with one, but the other one might have other ideas. And there's going to be young bulls hanging around in the willows. And they're very careful. They know the big guy will beat them up if they come too close. So they hang out and they look. But the cows are also looking. And while he might be busy with one cow, another one might sneak off into the willows and have a quickie with one of the youngsters, because he's just so much more attractive. And when another big, strong bull shows up and challenges him for dominance over his herd, or for access to his herd, they might fight. And these fights is kind of what musk oxen are famous for. They back up and they swing their horns like this. That's like saying, come on, come get me. And then they run at each other full speed, and they bang those horns together right here where they're thickest. And these fights can be epic. I mean, this can go on a dozen times, and then they push each other around. They try to hook the hooks of their horns into each other's flanks. They can really hurt each other doing that. So there's a lot at stake, and these fights don't happen that often, because usually they duke it out in some other way. often when two bulls square off, they just kind of walk parallel, like showing off their big hump and just their general amazing, big bullness or whatever. And one of them will say, okay, I guess I'm not putting up with this, I'm leaving.